Hello, everybody. My name is Alexander Bondarenko, and I'm happy to welcome you to my presentation of the paper Misbeliefs and Biases in Health-Related Searches. So our study was motivated by previous publications, which found that more than 70% of people who have internet access would use search engine to find information about symptoms, diseases, or even treatments, and that health misinformation is widespread on the web. It was also shown that people would tend to believe that alternative medicine helps, even in many cases when it doesn't, and that users of search engine would tend to trust the top rank result, be they positive answering questions yes or negative answering questions with no. The study made by White in 2013 showed that more than 50% of search engine answers to medical yes, no questions were in fact incorrect. So if we take a question, does celandine help with cancer, that contains a disease mentioned, cancer, and a potential alternative remedy, celandine, and type these questions in Russian into Yandex, then the top one snippet would answer the question positively. Yes, celandine helps with cancer, but also it will provide a recipe and instruction of how to prepare and take celandine against the cancer. Moreover, there is no warning in the snippet about celandine being a toxic plant and actually harmful for the health. And if one would search for the pair celandine cancer in medical publication, for example, at PubMed, then they would find a paper that describe some clinical trials and some clinical studies that actually found that the extract from celandine may be potentially interesting treatment for cancer in future at some point, but not yet. Okay, seeing those results at first hand, we formulated two main research questions. The first one is how people ask search engine questions that would contain disease and alternative remedy pairs that in fact represent potential misbelief. And the second question is how search engine answer such potential misbelief questions. So the data we had was comprised of 1.5 billion questions that were submitted to Yandex in 2012. Then we also extracted the diseases from the ICD codes that contained more formal diseases names. And to get more colloquial names, we extracted the entities from Wikidata. As for the alternative medicine, we extracted the list of medicinal plants from Wikidata and Wikipedia, and also a list of different alternative remedies from Wikipedia, like, for example, honey or leeches. As our first insight into the Yandex log, we calculated the frequencies of mentions of the diseases, symptoms, or different conditions or states in questions in Yandex. And we found that more than 70 million questions that constitute 5% of the log mention some disease. We also found that people ask more often about pimples than cancer, and that the most frequently asked questions are about pregnancy. So as the second insight into the log, we looked into the most frequent actual questions in the Yandex log, and we found that more often people ask about the definitions, like, for example, what is a vaginal thrush, and also how to get rid of some medical conditions, like how to get rid of pimples. We also looked into monthly trends for questions mentioning one most frequent disease, symptom, or condition. And we found that in summer, less questions were asked about fever, and this was not a surprise. And that questions about vaginal thrush peaking in spring and autumn, and the question about pimples showed the least deviation and overall increasing trend towards the end of the year. So we find those interesting observations and insights that can be found in the query log data might be an additional evidence for different medical studies. So then we wanted to see how actually search engine would answer potential health-related misbelief questions. And for that, we fetched more than 1 million questions from the log that contain a pair of disease and alternative remedy. And manually inspecting the data, we found two major groups of such questions. The first one is asking for some belief confirmation. This is a yes/no question, like, can hepatitis be cured with milk thistle? And the second group of questions would represent an established belief and would ask about instructions and recipes, like how to drink milk thistle to cure hepatitis. But in fact, medical evidence suggests that there is no evidence that hepatitis can help to cure, like hepatitis can be cured in milk thistle. So the ground truth answer that is found in medical literature to this question is no. Exactly those questions that have no scientific evidence that the remedy helps, or when clinical trials show the opposite, that it doesn't help, are considered as potential misbelief questions. Okay, so we selected 15 most frequent pairs, disease, alternative remedy, and for each pair we fetched 2 questions, one yes/no questions, like does celandine help with cancer, and the second question is asking for instructional recipes, for example, how to drink celandine for cancer. We searched for evidence in medical publication using Cochrane, PubMed, and Biomed Explorer to find the true answer to such questions. We typed those questions in Russian into Yandex and manually annotated top 10 snippets with whether the snippet answers the question yes, no, or the answer is not clear from the snippet, or also whether this snippet contains a recipe or instructions how to take the potential remedy, or it doesn't contain the recipe, and whether they are health warnings. And there is no health warnings about celandine in this example snippet. Okay, so we then also manually translated Russian questions into English, and for a complete picture, we typed into Google and did this similar annotation. So we found that as for the Yandex, almost 50% of the snippets answer questions positively when the ground truth is actually no. So they tend to confirm some untrue assumption, and only 6% give a correct no answer. 17 contain direct instruction and recipes, and 13% contain warnings about health risk. It looks a little bit better at Google, with almost 50% of correctly answered questions with no, and 1/3 would confirm untrue assumptions. A little bit less snippets contain direct recipes and instructions, a little bit less warnings, but again, more correctly no questions that those alternative remedies, in fact, do not help. So we found that snippets tend to confirm health-related misbelief. We also found that only few snippets contain warnings, And we believe that for potential misbelief questions, more attention should be put to the credibility of answers. Thank you very much.